Welcome back to Omni, where we break down complex global events into clear and insightful analyses. Today, we're examining a dramatic shift in the Middle East, the recent collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria and the resulting power vacuum. This development has sent shockwaves across the region, affecting Turkey's strategic ambitions, Kurdish autonomy, and Iran's regional influence. To understand what this moment means, we'll explore the historical backdrop, the players involved, and the possible futures unfolding before our eyes. Syria's civil war began in 2011 as a popular uprising against the Assad regime, evolving into a multifaceted conflict involving local factions and international powers. Over time, groups like Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, and various rebel coalitions emerged. Meanwhile, powerful neighbors, Turkey, Iran, and Russia, each backed different sides, aiming to secure strategic footholds. For nearly a decade, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey had played a careful and sometimes contentious role. Initially hoping to see Assad's fall, he later focused primarily on containing Kurdish influence in northern Syria. The SDF, predominantly Kurdish and a key partner for the United States in defeating the so-called Islamic State, has long sought greater autonomy. But these ambitions have repeatedly clashed with Ankara's security concerns and its view of the SDF as linked to the Kurdistan Workers' Party. The sudden end of Assad's rule, considered a watershed moment, has created a fractured landscape. HTS and various rebel factions are now establishing interim governance in former regime strongholds, such as Damascus and Homs. Many of these groups were previously contained in pockets like Idlib province, or forced out to distant territories. Their coordinated offensive succeeded so swiftly that the regime's forces, supported for years by Iranian and Russian backing, offered little resistance. Historically, control of Damascus symbolized legitimacy and power. Now, HTS leaders hold meetings in what were once prestigious hotels frequented by regime officials. The region is witnessing a complete inversion of authority, as long-displaced fighters return home triumphant. For Turkey, this moment opens new possibilities. Previously, Ankara's operations in Syria were heavily constrained by Russia's dominance in the skies and the risk of new refugee waves. With the Assad regime gone, Turkey faces a weaker Kurdish position. The SDF's hopes for lasting autonomy fade as Sunni Arab communities, once tolerating Kurdish rule due to fears of IS or Assad's violence, now reassess their loyalties in the wake of new Sunni-led authorities. Historically, Kurdish aspirations for statehood or autonomy have faced setbacks. After World War I, the Kurds found themselves divided among multiple countries with few rights recognized. Over the past decade, the SDF carved out a fragile zone of control. Now, amid shifting alliances, that fragile independence stands on uncertain ground. Iran, once deeply entrenched in Syria, now retreats. Before these events, Tehran leveraged Assad's regime and allied militias to maintain a strategic corridor stretching from Iran through Iraq and Syria, reaching Lebanon and the Mediterranean Sea. Iran's role allowed it to project power and threaten regional rivals. Today, with Assad's downfall and allied proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas recently diminished, Iran faces a strategic setback. Historical context: Iran's influence soared in the early 2010s, bolstered by the nuclear deal and expanding networks of regional partners. Now, it withdraws its forces from Syria as new local powers reshape the territory. This collapse brings into question Tehran's long-held strategy and might push Iranian policymakers to reconsider their priorities, possibly refocusing on domestic stability and defensive capabilities at home. Syria's future is far from settled. The country remains a mosaic of competing groups with differing ideologies and interests. Some factions, like HTS, have pledged accountability for past crimes, indicating no leniency for those linked to the old regime's brutal tactics. Others, like moderate rebel leaders, talk of laying down arms to help rebuild the country. The coming months and years will determine how inclusive or exclusive this new order becomes. Meanwhile, external players such as the United States may face renewed calls to withdraw their troops who once supported Kurdish allies, while countries like Turkey and Israel look to capitalize on their improved strategic positions. Returning refugees and rebuilding devastated cities will test the resilience of these new governing structures. The fall of the Assad regime marks a historical turning point in the Middle East. The region's power dynamics are in flux, with Turkey gaining leverage, Iran losing ground, and Kurdish aspirations under increasing strain. The significance lies not just in who holds Damascus today, but in how these shifting alliances, historical grievances, and external pressures will shape Syria's reconstruction and regional politics. We are witnessing the start of a new chapter, one that may redefine borders, redraw alliances, and influence geopolitical strategies for years to come. How stable will this new order be? How will these factions reconcile their differences? The answers to these questions will ripple far beyond Syria's borders. If you found this analysis valuable, please consider liking this video, sharing it with others interested in global affairs, and subscribing to Omni for more in-depth geopolitical breakdowns. Your engagement helps us continue providing balanced, carefully researched content. Let us know in the comments, what do you think will be the biggest challenge for Syria's new authorities as they attempt to consolidate power?